According to the National Retail Federation, almost half of consumers are switching to cheaper brands for everyday necessities. Gerald Storch with us this morning. By the way, Gerald, the Wall Street Journal has this story about people buying cheaper cigarettes and cheaper beer. I mean, I can understand it, but I guess that's a trend that's not going away, is it?
No, people are really starting to feel the bite of inflation. And while the Fed is raising interest rates, keep in mind the only way the Fed is going to change the inflation trajectory is by putting a stake in the heart of the American consumer. So they're not able to do both at the same time.
So, long story short, what he's telling us is that in order for the Fed, which basically the main tool that they have in their arsenal is to raise or lower rates in order to stimulate or make sure that they're fighting inflation, is to make sure that you suffer. This is the C student translation of everything that's going on in the economy right now. Essentially, when the economy slowed down and you had this pandemic, whether it was manufactured or not, whatever you believe, what happened was money became super cheap. And when money became super cheap, people felt more invigorated to go out and buy. They went out and bought more homes, even though they bought them at insane prices, just because it was easy to market to them and say, hey, you should own instead of rent. And so they went out and bought more consumer goods, and they got tired of sitting up with each other. And when they got ready to buy a new car, they paid inflated prices. I just read today specifically how the average cost of a car has been raised again to $48,000. $48,000 per car. So what retailers are doing is they're doing one of two strategies. Either they're cutting prices extremely, and I mean like bargain bin prices, Walmart, Target, all of them, they have excessive inventory because people are either buying cheaper products or they're competing for products that they know is not available, which they then have to wait on, and they're willing to pay a premium for it. And so either way, the consumer is getting squeezed because either they're getting a worse product or they're having to pay a premium for something that they would normally be able to pay normal prices for. The Fed continuing to raise rates means that the consumer is feeling the pinch. And even if you buy an expensive car, or you say you need a new car and you got to wait for one, or you got to pay a premium for it, what happens is you still get squeezed at the pump. You still get squeezed with your insurance. You still get squeezed with your housing costs and your rent and even your utilities. The price of gas and electricity is going up and things like that. So the consumer is getting hit all the way around, and it's mainly the middle class. Okay.
It's like someone who can't pat their head and play with their circle their belly or whatever. The rising interest rates will eventually knock down the consumer and knock down inflation at the same time. But then we're in recession. So that's the choice we have.
Okay. Macys going to open some more of their small format stores, opening them outside of the malls. Why are they doing that, Gerald?
Well, they're trying to deal with the fact that their core business, which is giant, mammoth, behemoth department stores and malls, is dying. And so they're trying to be innovative. This is kind of clever. So they're saying, hey, everyone's going away from the mall to these off the mall concepts. So let's build our own.
In addition to that, they're also trying to pivot over to e-commerce because the consumer is not only willing to do business from their home, but they're also willing to pay a premium for that, including Afterpay, Klarna, PayPal, and things like that. So you also got to pay attention to other trends, right? Even though the mall concept, in my opinion, has long been dying, because I hate going to the mall, and the only mall that I even go to is a super premium one because I want what I want at that specific moment. But in most instances, I already have what I need, and I can hold off, or if I need to get something, I can just order it online. I was just on Saks online this morning when they sent me an email. But again, the consumer is the one that's being squoze, and they're going to feel it. And when you see retailers starting to pivot, because Macy's don't want to end up like Sears, which in my personal opinion, they are going to go the way of Sears. I think that Macy's is incredibly overpriced. I think that what you've seen during the pandemic is Macy's largely became a quote unquote unofficial meme stock, and that why would you ever prop up Macy's considering what the retailers are doing, and the retailers are getting absolutely killed neither here nor there. If I had to bet, and I'm not telling anybody what to do, and I do not have a position short or long on Macy's, I would short Macy's because I think that Macy's is a dying brand. Retailers are starting to pivot in that they even starting to move away from their core business, which is being in malls.
So they opened 4 of them. They're going to add another 4 this year. They're about 20,000 square feet. Put some scale to that. That
Market
means
by
it would take about
Macy's.
100 of them to fill up, the so-called world largest department store, Macy's Herald Square, or 8 to 10 of them to equal a regular Macy's store. So they're small stores.
That junk look corny to them. It looks so corny.
The best of Macy's will be in the stores to try to deal with the problems with department stores, how inconvenient they are, how much time you have to spend in them, how much merchandise that's not moving they have in the stores by having a strong edited assortment. I think it's great. I think it's innovative. But the reality is they have 500 Macy's stores. So they're going to have to build a lot of these at such a small scale to make any difference at all in the trajectory of the business. So I think they're still in big trouble.
I don't even remember the last time I shopped at Macy's. I think Rita went and picked up something at Macy's. Maybe we buy a Ralph Lauren shirt or two there, but I mean, who really goes to Macy's, honestly?
I believe they're putting Toys R Us, almost like little pop-up stores, inside Macy's. Didn't you used to run Toys R Us?
I did. And, department stores used to be in the toy business years ago. Remember Miracle on 34th Street with Santa Claus and all? You used to go to department stores to buy toys. But one of the biggest mistakes department stores made is they started cutting categories. They cut out toys. They said, we can't compete with Toys R Us. They cut out electronics. They said, we can't compete with Circuit City at the time or Best Buy, the specialty players, or Target or Walmart or Amazon.
Or the dead Radio Shack.
And you know what? In a way, they're right. While this will certainly give you something else you can buy when you're...
But see, think about it, and this man is kind of biased, even though he has a level of expertise, because he said the biggest mistake that they made, but then they were right. How can you say the biggest mistake that they made, but then they were right in the same sentence? The problem wasn't that they couldn't compete with the smaller stores. The problem was that they couldn't compete with big box stores that also offered groceries, and they did that as a loss leader. And as a person that's actually been able to, have some consulting inside of retail, what happens inside of the Walmarts and things like that is that they look to get you in with the groceries. They look to get you in with the things that you need, and then hopefully you can buy the things that's higher margin. The only thing that's decent margin inside of a grocery store is dairy, yogurts, all of that type of stuff. And then they hope that you browse over and you buy a comforter, or you buy some school supplies, or you go and pick up a t-shirt, or you get some wife beaters and things like that. So they couldn't compete against bigger box stores and Amazon. Their e-commerce was absolutely atrocious. It had nothing to do with the fact that they couldn't compete with the Toys R Us. They couldn't compete with the Radio Shacks and the Best Buys. They couldn't compete with Circus Cities because Circus City couldn't compete with Walmart and all the rest of them. And Best Buy is largely becoming an e-commerce retailer, hopefully, right? That's what they're saying. But retailers are starting to be squeezed, and that's how you know we pretty much in or we're heading towards a recession.
A Macy's store, there's no way these 1,000 square foot pop-up stores will really be able to compete with the assortments you have at Target and Walmart and Amazon, which are dominating the business.
What did I just say? What did I literally just say? Somebody get me a CEO position at one of these companies so I can fix it and get their lives together
right now. But it does show the power of the Toys R Us brand, that this licensing company bought the name, then licensed it to Macy's and put in these Toys R Us stores, and it's all over the news. Toys R Us is back. Yeah. I sure hope so.
Yeah.
And
it reminds me of Shark Tank, right? And that they don't necessarily care about the invention. They care about licensing the invention so that they can make money and that they don't have capital costs when it comes to investing in a lot of these companies. Listen, the question then becomes if we're headed in a recession or if we're already in one. One thing is for sure, two things is for certain. We are definitely that train is going that way, whether you are already there as an individual or not. Of course, they have data to determine whether or not you're officially or they're officially in a recession. But the reality is that you need to buckle up your seatbelt, make sure that you lower your costs, remove the debt, and then make sure that you're prepared to capitalize off of the recession, not just necessarily talk about it. I love you guys. I appreciate you. Thank you. Make sure you subscribe to the Patreon. Just dropped the Patreon exclusive a few days ago. Link is in the description as well as pinned to the top of the chat. If you need to kick it with me personally, I'm doing Zoom calls. I'm doing phone calls. Email me at antondaniels413@gmail.com and we're going to get it popping. I need you to do me one more favor before we get up out of here. Make sure you tell your family and friends. We don't want to be successful by ourselves. Make sure you're making the right adjustment so that you can then capitalize off of what's going on because somebody got to eat. Might as well be you. I love you. I appreciate you. Subscribe to the channel. I'm going to talk to you later. Peace.